Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you all here today. Thank you for coming. Today's topic of our webinar is giving your annual fund its annual checkup. I'm grateful you're here today, and I just want to give you a little heads up. This program today, we put it together in just a couple of days. We saw through the AFP forum in the community that there was a real need, that folks were asking, how do I do my annual fund plan? How do I do an example? Or can I have an example? Can folks share? And so we thought what we would do today is sort of the teach a man to fish method of it. So just want to make sure we're all in the right webinar. I want to ask a couple of questions. Are you concerned when you think about next year's annual fund that you won't reach your goal, or that your volunteer and staff team aren't prepared for 2022? Are you afraid that you don't know which tactics to use with which prospects, or perhaps you're not even sure of the timing of your solicitations? And would you like to, by the end of this conversation, be able to efficiently prioritize what you need to leverage for more fundraising success, assemble a plan for greatest effectiveness, and then be able to begin 2022 confident in your roadmap for your total development program? I hope that's why you're here, because in this workshop today, we're going to show you what you need to develop a sensible, practical plan that will position you for fundraising success now and set the stage for the future. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You might be saying, that's great, but what do you know about this? And let me just take a couple of minutes to tell you a true story. And I like to joke and say, once upon a time in annual fundraising land, I was a relatively new development director. And we had a couple of pretty successful years. We had increased our annual fund revenue by about a third, 28% one year, 32% the following year. And my board said, hey, you are doing so well. Development officers' dream and nightmare, victim of their own success. Let's raise your goal so that you increase by 150%. Okay. Wow, that was something. And that's when I knew that it was time to get some help. And that's why I'm here to help you today. And I'm a little bit like the Hair Club for Men guy. In fact, it was my firm that I hired to help me at that juncture. And I'm really, really optimistic that what we have to share today with what goes into your annual fund plan will help you. End of the story is it was a happy ending. So all of that being the case, are you feeling like the year end is already upon you? You're sending out your direct response, you're sending out your email, and you don't know how you're going to be able to develop your plan for 2022 before maybe April? Are you feeling fragmented by the number of decisions and the speed at which they must be made, or perhaps overwhelmed that year end is here and you don't have a clear vision for next year? We're going to fix it. Are you uncertain how to organize the work for greatest fundraising results? Again, talk a little bit about our mission and how we can help you today. And what Skystone Partners does is together we design elegant fundraising solutions that elevate your organization's skills and transform your fundraising results sustainably and over time. And what that means is our firm seeks to transform the fundraising results of 50,000 nonprofit fundraisers, executives, and board members so that you may fulfill your missions and improve the quality of life and standard of living for 1 billion people worldwide. That is our goal and why we're here today. And we love working with those kind of people. And if you love being those kind of people, I'm really glad that you're here. So I'm going to make a couple of promises here today. First of all, this will be 60 minutes well spent. Secondly, you will be able to see what needs to be included in your annual fundraising plan to help you raise more money now. And last but not least, you will be able to apply how to leverage your annual fundraising plan into a tool that elevates volunteer and executive engagement in fundraising to bring higher results. So, a couple of things on housekeeping: no multitasking, close the door, grab a pen and a piece of paper, and then check the chat, because during today's conversation, we have a handout that we'll send along afterwards as well, but Sam has posted it in the chat just now, which does outline the precepts for today's call. And then the last piece of housekeeping is I can tend to be a little bit irreverent. but I'm also kind. So those are the housekeeping notes for the day. So plus, if you stick with us until the end of the webinar, we're going to take just a couple of minutes that sort of follows naturally on how do I plan, but how do I make the case for annual fund giving? And I like to give a little hint here that it's not general operating support. All righty now. There we go. So are you in? This is who I am. I've been in the profession for 25 years. I've consulted for nearly 15. I've helped hundreds of nonprofits transform their results. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been on the other side of the desk. I've sat in your seat. I've been an event manager, a guild coordinator, a development director, an individual giving officer, and an executive director with many kinds of organizations. And currently, I'm personally serving clients positioned to raise more than $100 million successfully right now. So if you're ready, there is one thing between uncertainty of where you are now and the confidence you require, which is your annual fundraising plan. So, annual fund plan, there are 4 essential elements to your plan. First, preparing. Secondly, organizing. Third off, educating folks. And then lastly, asking, because what is a plan if we're not asking and actually raising the money for it? A couple of notes, this word annual fund, there are sometimes different definitions of what annual fund means. For us, an annual fund is a campaign, and the focus is on planning based on mission and vision. It is time urgent and real needs, and it really focuses, of course, on all gifts, but of major gifts. So when we're talking about annual fund, we're talking about all of the philanthropic revenue that makes up that pie, what the diverse revenue streams are that come in on a regular basis that meet your day-to-day, week-to-week needs, mission-based needs of your organization. And the campaign, the annual fund campaign, is a prospect nurturing, involvement, solicitation, and acknowledgement kind of a process. So just wanted to set that expectation. It is a continual annual fundraising program to seek gifts from your constituents, and it's that acquisition piece as well to provide needed operating support. And you may say, well, you just said it's not operating support. Of course it is, but we're going to talk about how we can position that in such a way that it will be even more attractive to your donors. The objectives of your annual fund are to provide funds to support your operations, to motivate donors to support your organization. So of course you can bring them in closer and they support higher level mission related needs in the future. It's to create awareness and acceptance of your programs. It's to nurture your prospects, involve and develop volunteers, because if they work well as volunteers in your annual fundraising program, they may be candidates for other opportunities. And it's to validate your organization's priorities and mission. All of these things to raise the money, and all of these things as well. And when we work with an organization, much like we're doing here today, the most productive relationship is a partnership. So again, I said, let's get out pen and paper, take some notes and start sketching out your outline while we're here together, because our goal is to develop this with you and not for you, so you reach your objectives. We support all organizations to empower folks to raise their fundraising level of sophistication for more knowledgeable and experienced leaders. But the other piece of it that I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about, we understand what is the annual fund, what are its objectives, what is the importance of the plan, but the results rely on you. Without the effort, approval, and attention of staff, board, executives, and you, nothing will happen. Things will continue on the same way as they have before. So for this plan that we'll work out together, you've got to commit to challenging your status quo. You've got to commit to doing the work and to gain the understanding and approval of other decision makers in your organization quickly. So as I mentioned, there's 4 steps to successful annual fundraising that surround your annual fund plan. And the first step is, in fact, preparing. So what does that mean? The first thing, and what you'll all see is all of these slides have more information sort of fleshed out in that PDF that Sam has posted in the chat. They're in a little bit different order than we've provided here today, but the first thing is to set a realistic and attainable financial goal. Because if you don't know where the goalposts are, how do you know when to celebrate? How do you know when to win? So you want to state a specific amount to be raised based on what constituents can give. So you want to base this on previous annual fund successes and on prospect rating and screening. That means you need to look to see what you have done before in the different revenue lines so that you can project and set a realistic goal for the future, all pieces of your plan. Next, in the planning stage, in the preparation stage, we're developing that fundraising plan. In your plan includes the outline and the role of the annual fund committee. You may wish to put a charter in. Your development committee or your annual fund committee, their role is to raise more money, raise awareness, bring people closer to the organizations, etc. It should include the solicitation mechanisms to be used, face-to-face, direct mail, electronic, events, all of the acquisition mailings, all of the different kinds of mechanisms to be used. It should include how you will plan, launch, solicit, and report gifts, as well as any events, staff support, and budgeting. So that's the general contents of your fundraising plan. Step 2 is organizing. So we've gone through the planning. We know first thing we need to do is set that goal. Second thing we need to do is gather the information to develop the plan. The next thing that we need to do is organize the information. And so this is really the crux of the matter, your written plan. Your written plan includes the financial goal and the case. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about how to make the case a little later on. And this document, this annual fund plan, really becomes the resource for your committee. It becomes the resource for your solicitations. It becomes the resource for all of the different kinds of appeals and proposals you may write throughout the year. It includes activities, deadlines. It includes how you'll reach existing and new prospects and the role for volunteers. So for example, we will want to make sure that if you've got a major gifts initiative, which I recommend strongly, a major gifts initiative as a portion of your annual fundraising program, you'll want to make sure you know what is our overall goal, what is our major gifts goal, what are the nurturing activities that need to occur in general. Who's going to do the solicitation? Well, the major gifts committee, the CEO, the chief development officer, who your prospects are. And that'll depend on your organization. If you count a major gift at $10,000 or $25,000 or $50,000, how are you going to identify those folks? So you want to define who those prospects are. So the big goal, the goal of the phase, the activities, sort of nurturing activities, schedule and deadlines, how you're going to identify existing and new prospects. And then you'll also want to make sure you've got the role of the volunteers included in that. So who is responsible? Solicitation guidelines. So for example, and I'm going to use major gifts, annual major gift solicitation. The solicitation guidelines would be, for example, we will seek to reach for our organization 300 major gift prospects, making 150 asks throughout the course of the year and achieving X number of gifts from these prospects with our financial goal of $3 million, $10 million, whatever is right and reasonable based on what you have done in the past. So your solicitation guidelines, face-to-face, volunteer-led, staff-supported solicitation. You'll also want to make sure included in this, in your synopsis of what does major gifts look like, what are the materials folks are going to need? That will be a proposal, typically a written proposal. It might be a previous year's impact statement. So the written plan, we talked about what the written plan includes. You heard me reference that you'll want to have a mini plan inside the big plan for each of your constituencies. And that's because as you're organizing, you need to organize folks by constituencies. People who attend events, major gift prospects, board members, former board members, people who give electronically or via direct mail. And for each of these constituencies, a strategy, an annual strategy, should be developed for that segment of your donors. Begin with your top prospects first. In other words, at the beginning of your fiscal year, or perhaps at the beginning of your calendar year, however you like to count, you want to start with your board. They should be your top prospects. They are your cheerleaders and your advocates. So begin with them, followed closely by your top level major gift donors, all the while preparing for those folks who are in your middle tier or at the bottom tier as it relates to their level of giving. And of course, you continue on with them throughout the year. One thing that I do want to mention is that when you're thinking about your constituencies, the reason that we start with our best prospects first is because, frankly, results follow a typical pattern of giving. And you'll want to take a look whether your annual fund is $1 million, or if it's $10 million, or if it's $35 million, or $100 million. Your results will follow a typical pattern of giving, which means about 2% of your total donors will give half of the total. About 20% given the next 30 to 40% of your overall goal. And you'll want to use this pattern as a planning aid to organize solicitation strategies accordingly. So in other words, if you know, and I'll put this donor pyramid up here, you want to solicit planned gifts, capital gifts, major gifts up here in the face-to-face section. We'll go with larger renewal initial gifts on down the line. But if you put your donor pyramid together and say, okay, my goal this year is $10 million. I need to have at least one key gift in this campaign that is between 10 and 30%. That means I need one gift of between $1 and $3 million. For that, I need to have 3 prospects. And this goes back to your plan. So in other words, excuse me, you will take the overall goal. You will take a look at your donors from this year. You will evaluate where your donors have kind of fallen in so that you know how many gifts you need at which level to reach the goal. It's math. I love math. But then you also will be looking at your donor prospects to know how many prospects you need in each of the categories. Of course, direct mail, direct response, and mid-tier giving, that tends to be a little bit different prospect ratio. For major gifts, it's 3 to 1 or 4 to 1. When you move down the giving pyramid for gift size, of course, you'll need to have more prospects, 5, 6, 10, 20 to 1. So this helps you when you're organizing your plan. You're thinking about your constituencies. Okay, in this phase, in my direct response program, I need to raise, of my $10 million goal, I need to raise $1.5 million. Okay, how many people gave at this level and by this mechanism last year? How many people did we ask? And then figure accordingly the likely number of gifts and a strategy to help increase, whether it's more solicitations, more focused solicitations, and the like. So, and focus attention on the levels of giving needed. We'll get more into that a little bit later. Here's our diagram of the donor pyramid, and this is a fantastic planning tool. It can also be a really effective tool when you're asking for those annual major gifts, because it helps people understand how important their gifts are to your overall mission success. So again, summary, written plan includes the goal and the case, activities, schedules, and deadlines, how to reach your existing and new prospects, how your volunteers will support you, solicitation guidelines, materials needed, and then at the end, budget and staff, because it takes money to raise money. And if you know what the resources are that you need, materials, staff, financial, you'll be in a much better position when you know and can plan. All of that should be included in your annual fund plan. So step 3, we've been through step 1, preparation, step 2, organization. Now step 3, we're educating. And who are we educating? We're educating everybody. We're educating ourselves, but we're educating our boards, our executives, our donors. So in step 3, we're educating ourselves and maybe thinking about things a little bit differently than you have up until this point. The annual fund should be expressed in program terms. Donors are motivated when they know they're making a difference, and it is more than just balancing your budget. So what is it that certainly you're filling the gap, right? You may have earned revenue, you may have government grants, but you are filling the gap. The key, though, is what are you doing with that money? How many more children will you be able to provide books for? How many more people will you be able to provide meals for? How many more books will you be able to acquire for your library or your institution of higher education? What is the difference that those dollars are making? You'll want to identify those specific activities, programs, or services, but you'll want to really limit it when you make your annual fund appeal, your case, to only include allocations to about 3 to 6 areas. More than that, even if you have more than that, more areas than that need support, these are the areas that you will promote. Now, does that mean those gifts are restricted? Absolutely not. You are simply saying your $100, your $1,000, your $10,000 enables our zoo, our museum, our hospital to do these things. This is the impact that you'll be making. And you seek gifts for these purposes, but again, they needn't be restricted directly to that. What you're doing is demonstrating the need, showing it off, and helping people understand how their dollars make a difference rather than electrical bill, phone bill, lights open, lights on, etc. All of this leads up to developing your annual fund case for support. And again, this is the rationale for your annual fund. You present this case to each audience and you say, well, of course we would. But we want to hop back to this. In your annual fund plan, you'll want to have sort of your big mothership document of your case for support. And it is these programs, it is this aspirational verbiage that you use to develop your direct mail solicitations, your email solicitations, your social media solicitations for Giving Tuesday, for example. But it's also out of which your major gift proposals can be developed. And it is out of which some of your grant proposals, many of your grant proposals may be developed. And so this is the sort of the motherlode document, the source document, and it will change from year to year. It probably won't change dramatically, but when you think of the case, it is your library of stuff to pull from. And each time you use it, you adapt the format to that specific audience. And the materials should address key questions and topics. In other words, what are you doing? Why does it matter? Who in the community benefits? How much does it cost? And how people can help. From there, so we have thus far, we have educated. So we've educated how our annual fund supports our program needs. We have developed our annual fund case statement. Now we're ready to ask. So you can see how all of this rolls up into your annual fundraising plan and becomes a part of it, because what you're asking for also helps drive the strategy, the tactics, the materials that you need for each of your audiences. So now we've got a plan, we've got our case, we've got our plan, our volunteers know what's being asked of them. We know which tactics we're using with which audiences. And of course, best tactics with best prospects, face-to-face is always the most effective way. And we have this grand plan, but we don't want it to sit on a shelf, because then it's just an intellectual exercise. Getting into the actual practical application of how does your plan affect your asking is step 4. And what we're all really going for is better results more effectively and in less time. So, as I mentioned, we use the best techniques with our best prospects. All of this outlined in the plan. Personal solicitation is the most effective, and this should be used for your board, for your former board, for your major gift prospects. You can also consider a telephone appeal in this day and age where so many of us are Zooming and calling, where folks may or may not have have comfort getting together, you can consider a telephone appeal or perhaps a mail appeal. Mail appeals and electronic appeals really should be last as you roll out your different tactics, because you want to make sure you've hit your prospects who have the greatest capacity and have the closest relationship with you first. So we're not asking them for a smaller gift than they might be interested and willing to offer our organization to help us realize our goals. Your solicitation should be staff supported, volunteer driven, and it will make your organization and your trustees actually much more happy if they have ownership of the process. So it's important that as you're developing this plan, that you include your development committee chair or your annual fund chair, that you're in communication with your CEO or executive director, and that you're including the board all the way along. There are opportunities for there to be leaders at every stage of the game, whether it is through event chairmanship or through making connections with foundations and corporations or individuals. And this is an opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, to develop your volunteer corps and hone their skills. It also is, as many of you know, as you all well know, when a peer asks a peer, it's a very compelling ask. And then when you do ask, again, you've done the planning, the preparation, the organization, education, you've created your beautiful materials to make sure that all of your best laid plans garner the results that you would like and that you need to realize your missions. So we need to ask for a specific gift. And that includes our major donors, our foundations. It includes event attendee ticket purchases. Of course, if it were a pay what you wish event, you would have no way to project what that end result would be. And it includes our direct mail and email solicitations. You can make it payable over the course of the year. And you want to make sure that when you ask for that specific gift, particularly when you're asking at the higher end with those personal peer-to-peer solicitations, that you acknowledge the donor's interests, that you honor their intentions, and having that connection and using those best solicitation techniques with your top-level prospects will build that relationship for continued retention and a healthy, sustainable fundraising program. So, quick recap. And I'm going to ask for questions and answers here in a minute, but there are 4 essential elements to your successful fundraising planning. First, preparation. Set a realistic and attainable goal and develop the fundraising plan. And again, we can send out the PowerPoint slides if you'd like, and a replay of this webinar will be available and sent after today's webinar as well, so that you will have that sort of what is in your plan, realistic goal and fundraising plan. Secondly, you will be organizing. You write the plan, you organize by constituents, and the results follow the pattern of giving that you would see that a lot of folks might identify more closely with a capital campaign, but annual fund results follow that pattern as well. And the donor pyramid, with 2% of your people giving about 50% of your dollars, is something that you can pretty well reliably count on as you're planning for each phase of your annual fundraising program. The 4th item is educating. So we need to make sure that we're not just saying we need money because we need money and there's a gap, that we've identified how this money supports what we do. And I'll give you a little example here. I used to be the director of development for the Hamilton County Sexual Assault, Domestic Violence, and Stalking Center here in Greater Cincinnati, where we're based. And a lot of our programmatic expenses looked like operating expenses. So we had advocates that would go to court with domestic violence victims, advocates that would go to the hospital with sexual assault victims. We also had support groups, one-on-ones. We staffed a hotline. And so the things that we needed to be able to provide those programs were salaries for our advocates, were safe and comfortable rooms for support groups, were individual offices, light, heat, phone for people to come for one-on-one advocacy sessions with their person. We also needed a phone line to be able to provide support through our crisis intervention hotline that we shared with another agency in town. Lights, heat, rent, office space. It all looks like general operating support. But the thing is you can programatize every single piece of that, generally speaking, unless it's truly admin or fundraising, into programmatic buckets. And so I'd like you to open your minds, if you have been thinking about those as sort of GOS, try to think about what you've considered GOS in the past as a real true programmatic item, and develop that annual fund case statement with that in mind. And then lastly, the fourth essential aspect to successful fundraising is the ask, volunteer-based for a specific amount. So again, the written plan includes the following 7 things. You'll have this replay as well as the PowerPoint and the materials in the chat from earlier to reference. And remember, it is a campaign where we're focused on planning. It is time urgent for real needs. There is a true importance to reach the top of that donor pyramid early on. And we are nurturing, involving, soliciting, and acknowledging our prospects along the way. So, questions and answers. We've been through a fair amount of material in about 30 minutes. And I'd like to take a breath here and see what folks may like some further clarification on. What did we hit on that leaves a gap? And I know it sometimes takes a couple of minutes for folks to type in the Q&A. So one question that I see is, how do I know that I am reaching the right audience with the right tactic? That's a great question. So when you are reaching out to your audience, what you want to do, again, we're separating them by constituencies. And let's say, for example, for ease of math, you have a $10 million annual fundraising goal. And you know that you need to have about 50% of your funds coming from the top 2%. So we've got to have $5 million at that very top tier. That means that we need another, let's say, $4 million in the middle tier and $1 million in the bottom tier. So what you'll want to do is look at your giving history and see where your donors fit in those proportions as it relates to how many are in each category, and start sort of thin slicing them off. So if, of those lowest tier gifts, how many of them made up $1 million? And then you will know for the smaller gifts, $5, $10, $25, $100, that those are the folks that you're going to use tactics like social media, electronic solicitation, and direct mail, as well as acquisition with those folks. Then you'll look at the next chunk of folks, the next 40%, give or take. So you'll draw those lines. And let's say those gifts are $10,000 and under, or $10,000 and under the people who are giving and have made up that 10%. You'll also probably want to segment them out a little bit as well, but generally speaking, these are the folks that you can use the lowest touch solicitation with. Then those next donors, the ones who gave more than 10,000, but let's say less than 500,000 or less than $250,000, move the decimal point if your organization is smaller or larger. How many donors were there? Okay, if we had 100 donors, how many people did we ask? And it is with that section, that middle tier section, where you may want to use sort of a hybrid approach. And you'll design that into your plan. We need to reach 300 middle tier donors. I'm not sure I like that term, but it's what's being used today. We need to reach about 300 middle tier prospects to get to our 100 donors at that level. And we're going to use it with a combination of letter and phone and Zoom call follow-up. So that's kind of how you will slice those out, how you'll know how to use which tactics. You'll also want to make sure when you're applying your resources, you'll want to make sure that you are being most volunteer intensive with those peer relationships at the top of your giving chart. So thank you so much, Jim, for asking that question. I wonder if there are other questions relative to developing your annual fundraising plan that you all may have thus far. And I know sometimes I'm just going to be quiet for a second. Another thing we sometimes hear when folks are rolling out their annual fund plans is they say, well, isn't that just direct mail? And we talked about that a little bit earlier in the conversation. And I'd like you all to consider if annual fund or annual fundraising can be considered everything you do throughout the course of the year in that diverse stream of revenue. That comes into your organization every single year. There's going to be opportunities to ask questions later on, but let's go on a little bit more and consider for a moment, based on the framework that we've talked about today in developing your annual fundraising plan. Today, do you have a start on your focused priorities and a start on an effective plan? That's the big question. And my question to you is, do you feel like we've kept our promise that it'll be 60 minutes? Well, so far it's only been 40 of value that will benefit your organization in this workshop. Do you have greater tools? And so if the answer is yes, where to from here? What I'd like to say is today you've got in your pocket now, between the replay of this video, the PDF that we forwarded on, and the notes that you've taken about how to slice out your constituents, what belongs in your annual fundraising plan, you have the tools. And I am optimistic that you are able to knock this out. I also recognize that the year is getting short, and we want our fundraising successes to be your fundraising successes. In other words, we've helped a number of other organizations like the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, Conservancy for Cuyahoga Valley National Park, TriHealth UK, Zoo Knoxville, in a variety of programs, many of them very similar to what we're talking about today. And we want you to be most successful. So I've got to ask you, what is your most precious resource now? And for me, it's almost always time. And I'd like to offer the opportunity. You've got the skills, you've got the attributes, you've got what you need to develop this yourself. But if time is too short, we can help. So you don't need to spend your time reimagining tactics, doing an in-depth assessment of your fundraising results, developing your timeline, roles and assignments, new communications opportunities, or reconfirming that you're connecting with the right constituencies. Quite frankly, you need one thing, and you need a game plan. And I'd like to take a couple of minutes to talk about how this framework that we've talked about together, how we've designed this together, how you can design that into your full-blown annual fundraising plan, and quite frankly, how we can help you. We call it the annual fundraising game plan. And you use this game plan to carry forward your existing fundraising successes now and position your organization for the long-term future. So when we designed the program that we're calling the annual fundraising game plan, is we had two choices. First of all, we could go very cheaply and sort of blast it out. We could give tons of unpersonalized service. Here's your plan. We had a second choice, which requires a little higher investment, but in exchange, we can devote more resources to help you succeed. So if you think this might be helpful, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can help. Again, I'd like to reassure you, you have the tools you need, but if time is too short, we can help. So what is the annual fundraising game plan? It's designed specifically for your needs to make your decision confidently, build consensus, and act quickly for maximum fundraising results. And it's your guide to organizational fundraising success and financial sustainability. The benefits is that you will enter 2022 with the confidence and peace of mind that your organization is taking the right steps based on data, best practice, your unique experience and situation, and our expertise of how and when to break the rules. I love that Pablo Picasso said, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. And so the steps to the game plan, quite frankly, they are the program assessment and overview, in which we review your recent annual and major gift results, special project fundraising, and the outline from today's work. It's a gift assessment where we analyze your donors by source, size, recent windfalls, and surprises relative to today's environment. We review your staff involvement, assignment of fundraising duties, experience, measures, and indicators of success. We look at your board involvement because the best fundraising is volunteer-led, staff supported, and we review the interest of your board, their acceptance of fundraising duties and willingness to accept those duties. Your publications, because if you're communicating and people know who you are, they're more likely to support you, as well as your overall program management. So we help assess how the fundraising operation supports your fundraising efforts and success. So the last piece, and I've got here in bold because we referenced it earlier, is our board activation section of the game plan. If you've got the understanding, acceptance, and willingness of your board, you're going to be miles ahead. And when our clients' board members are engaged and activated, their networks expand exponentially and their fundraising success increases dramatically. We'll do an in-person, and I've said, virtual session with your board to share the most effective path forward for your organization right now. In other words, the plan and the results of the plan and the why, to gain their support, show them how they can help now, and activate them for your short and long-term fundraising success and sustainability. We can help you, and we're able to do this with attendees and people who've registered for this webcast for $97.95. And if you'd like to join, watch your email. We'll have a message with the subject line, I want the annual fundraising game plan, and just reply to the email to get started or click on the Get Started button. We're only offering this board activation program and the overall game plan to you all through this webinar. And I ask you, if your board were on board and they were engaged, would it be worth it? If you think about how this will save you time and consider that it is also involving your board to help make sure they are leveraging their networks and doing the lifting together with you, would it be worth it? And typically assessment and game plan fees run in the range of about $25,000. So would it be worth it to you if we engage your key staff member, your chief executive, volunteer leaders, and called them to action effectively to help them understand exactly how they can help build your organization now? So to you, what is the ability to start your new year off quickly and confidently out of the gate? What is it worth? And with an average cost to raise $1 between 20 and 30 cents, your organization only needs to raise an additional $39,000 for it to be worth it. That's the equivalent of 1 or 2 major gifts, depending on how you count it, to make it worth it. So as you know, and as we've talked about earlier, Skystone Partners has helped thousands of organizations worldwide design elegant fundraising solutions to elevate their skills and transform their fundraising results sustainably and over time. We have a campaign right now that's wrapping up. Now, this is a multi-year campaign, but our client has raised 30% over goal and has finished 2.5 years early. Our clients transform their fundraising results, and I hope you do see that it is a good opportunity. Outside of this webinar, again, folks who've attended, folks who've registered, the annual fundraising game plan program isn't available. And the reason we're doing it is because we believe we're offering at a discounted price because we believe we can offer much needed help to help you start off your new year with a bang. And it's designed for your unique situation and not out of the box. It's because the reason we're offering it now is because time is of the essence, and the quality of and the work that you do to enhance the quality of life and standard of living on the planet. And because of our mission to reach 50,000 nonprofit professionals and improve 1 billion lives worthwhile. That's why we're offering it now. If you'd like to, again, watch your email. There will be an email that says annual fund checkup for your annual fundraising plan replay, and click on the Get Started button. This is what we'll be able to offer you, and I'd be delighted to further the conversation about it if you'd like. You'll have the peace of mind that you'll have a custom annual fundraising game plan that will help guide your organization to success, sustainability, and stability. You've got the tools in your toolbox. We just help you put them together. So you've got two choices. Either you can do nothing and remain uncertain and hope for the best, or alternately, you could take action with this investment compared to the benefits your organization will reap. So the real question is your organization ready? Again, watch your email inbox. And what you need to do next is simply watch for the email and click on the button. We are staff. When I say we, it's me, Liz Knuppel, and our consultants who are here in Cincinnati and around the country. We've been practitioners. We've been staff members, board members, and consultants. And because before we were consultants, we were on the other side of the desk, boots on the ground, we've been there. Our clients have thrived through recent uncertain times, and we can help you do the same now and in the future. So that being the case, I appreciate everyone hanging on to the end, because I know you've been waiting with bated breath for this wrap-up question that's on everybody's mind. What about making our case? People should just give, or what about our goal is so high, or we need annual money to keep the lights on, our organization is slow to change, our donors love us, and they don't need that information. Those are all myths. How do we make that case effectively for our constituents? And there are 5 key elements to that. What will get your donors to give to your annual fund? You've planned beautifully. You've got everything you need, but what's that case so we can make the effective ask? Again, 5 elements, making your case for the annual fund. Who are you? What do you do? What can you do right now better than anybody else? What's your plan to do that? And how can people help? So I'd like to give you an example, and I can do it with any number of nonprofit organizations, but it's easiest with Skystone Partners because that's the organization that I know best. Who are we? We are Skystone Partners. We are a national full-service fundraising consulting firm headquartered in Cincinnati, and we've helped over 1,000 organizations since 1977. What do we do? Together with our clients, we design elegant solutions that elevate your organization's skills to transform your fundraising results sustainably and over time. What can we do right now better than anybody else? We listen, we work together with our clients, and with the plans we help them develop, they raise more money, more effectively, and in less time. What is our plan? Our plan is to reach 1 billion, to elevate the quality of life and standard of living of 1 billion people on the planet by 2030. And how can people help us reach that goal of reaching 50,000 nonprofit executives, volunteers, and staff members, and making the world a better place, elevating the quality of life and standard of living for 1 billion people? Invest in yourselves now. Take what you've learned today now. Develop it, apply it to your situation to develop your annual fundraising plan. You can also help us reach more people by becoming involved with us directly. But what I'd urge you today, because we feel so strongly in elevating the skills of the organizations that we work with, that you take this education, you work on it strongly, and you apply it to this situation. So I've gone through the 5 elements of making your case for your annual support. And now what you need to do is turn that in upon yourself and reflect, who are you? What do you do? What can you do right now better than anybody else? What's your plan to do it better? and how can people help? And that is the ask, folks. That is with your gift of $10,000, we can send a herd of animals. I'm pretending to be Heifer International, for example. We can send a herd of 2 cattle, 6 sheep, 5 goats, 10 chickens, and a hive of bees to a community in South America and make their world a better place. That's how you invite people to help. So, next steps, apply the knowledge, do the work, bring your board members along. If it is helpful to you for us to become involved and alleviate some of that time crunch, look for that email. The replay will be in there. You can watch it again and again, but you can also click on the button of Get Started Now. All of that being said, I want to thank you for your time today. I do hope that it was 60 minutes well spent. I appreciate your time and attention and questions. That being the case, go forth, do good work. Philanthropy is a powerful force for good.